In our previous video, we found out more about the construction of the Victoria Building and that after many delays it finally opened publicly on the 13th of December 1892. Previously, a separate opening ceremony for the clock tower had been held in November with many of the donors, such as William Hartley, in attendance. On the 13th of December 1892, a formal opening ceremony took place in the Victoria Building. On the 14th of December, there was a reception held in the building for over 3,000 dignitaries and cost £377, which is the equivalent of around £22,000 today. Guests were entertained with a varied programme of musical instrumental pieces in the Grand Entrance Hall and the Tate Library, as well as a performance of the first University College song called Salvete Civis Nostri in the Arts Lecture Theatre. The University College Choral Society was formed in 1891 and comprised of 30 male students who met to practice on alternate Friday evenings at 8:30 in the old Asylum building, and they performed this song for the guests at the opening ceremony. Professor Herbert Strong was the Professor of Latin at University College Liverpool, and he had composed the lyrics to the song. It was performed in Latin with the accompaniment of an English translation in the opening ceremony programme. The song title translates to "We give you greetings, citizens," which is fitting because the University College fundraising appeal for the construction of the Victoria Building had relied heavily on the generosity of the citizens of Liverpool, who had raised £250,000 for the University College and its brand new buildings. It appears that this song was written specifically for the opening ceremony, as it directly thanks the citizens of Liverpool for helping to build the Victoria Building and establish University College Liverpool, and states, "These halls the home of learning, we owe to thee alone." As the Victoria Building was the first home for the School of the Arts, Professor Strong included Greek mythology in the song too. The goddess Athena Pallas, also known as Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, was included in the song, as she was the patron of scholars, learning, science and art, and she was a suitable muse for the Faculty of Arts. Albert Lister Peace composed the music, and although he was not employed by University College Liverpool, he was a talented musician and had recently taken the position of organist in St George's Hall in Liverpool. On the 22nd of May 2015, a choral performance was recorded in the Legate Lecture Theatre, where the song was performed 123 years earlier. The performance in 1892 was performed in Latin with 30 male students, whereas the recording in 2015 consisted of both staff and students from the University of Liverpool and included both sexes to bring the song into the 21st century. after the Victoria Building's opening, the song disappeared from the student repertoire, as only a few months later, in March 1893, a complaint was made in the student magazine. The complaint stated that there wasn't a University College Liverpool song that could be performed by the students, because Salvete Civis Nostri was written in Latin and therefore not very popular amongst the students, because they couldn't understand the meaning and connect with the song. Another student replied to the magazine in April of the same year and stated that even the music was not sufficiently stirring, and although it would always be a favourite amongst the choral society, it wouldn't be more popular than the student pantomime songs heard in the common room and the refectory. In fact, several more articles in the Sphinx magazine also called for a dedicated student songbook to be put together. The first edition was published a few years later in 1905, and then a later one in 1913. Our Alma Mater on the Hill and the Liverpool Varsity were later songs written about the new college in 1905, and the song Fiat Lux, which are the words featured on the University of Liverpool's crest, was written in 1913. The songs were set to popular music and songs that the students would have known, and the new lyrics were put together by both the staff and the students themselves. The lyrics to the Liverpool Varsity were written by Ramsay Muir, who'd been a student in the 1890s and was just about to become a professor of history at the University of Liverpool. His song gives a comical comparison between Liverpool and other universities like Oxford, Cambridge and Manchester, and stating that Liverpool was by far the best. It seems that Ramsay Muir was often linked to humorous incidents, and just like the lyrics suggested in his Liverpool Varsity song, that the students of our college are a brisk and lively crew, another account of his comes from 1892, when he was a student who attended the Victoria Building opening ceremony.
A wire had been rigged up from one horn of the semicircular gallery to the other, the middle of it being immediately over the head of the Earl. When the procession filled the platform, and just as the Chancellor took his seat, an enormous biscuit, about 3 foot in diameter, specially baked for the occasion, was run along the wire, and amid the breathless attention of the whole audience gradually lowered, until it hung right in front of the Chancellor, completely obscuring him from the audience. It bore an inscription stating that it was for the Senate, which took the biscuit for its impudence in trying to exclude the students.
The authorities of the university had decided that the public opening of the Victoria Building should be held in the Arts Lecture Theatre. Lord Spencer would perform the ceremony and many distinguished guests were invited, but there was no room for the students. After a protest, the students managed to secure the top balcony in the Arts Lecture Theatre, and in Muir's own words, the following account happened at the opening ceremony.
It was amusing to watch the professors during the spectacle. One chewed his moustache so hard to keep himself from laughing that it has not recovered to this day. Another stroked his beard and looked melancholy. A third, not particularly distinguished for keeping order in his classes, actually shook his fist at the gallery.
Although the dignitaries of Liverpool had been treated to Salvetti Civis Nostri by the college choir, it appears that the favourite pantomime songs mentioned earlier in the student magazine also echoed around the Arts Lecture Theatre during the opening ceremony, so that they could also hear the choral talent of the other university students. Muir stated the following account in the Sphinx student magazine in March 1893.
Remarkable musical efforts were produced by the students' orchestra, which consisted of bagpipes, tin whistles, penny trumpets, and rattles. University songs were rendered with great spirit, such as Tarara Bumtier.
Ramsay Muir later became Professor of History at the University of Liverpool from 1906 to 1913, and then later studied at Oxford, despite his previous loyalty to the University of Liverpool, in the Liverpool Varsity Song that he'd written in 1905. It's thanks to many of his accounts in the college magazine and memoirs written later in his life that we know more about the opening ceremony from the students' point of view, and not just what was written in the national press. Some of the newspaper articles published at the time stated the following accounts. In yesterday's function in the theatre of the Victoria Building of University College bore some trace of a semblance of fun. Taking the cake is not an academic phrase, but it is likely to become so, for the biscuit of colossal circumference which the student slung down to the mayor at the close of his introductory speech will, so long as it exists, necessarily be looked upon as a classic of the oven. Then the students relapsed into their discordant yells. A number of living cats appeared to have got into the building, and for the sacred precincts of the muses, the arts and sciences were given over to caterwauling resembling the resurrection of a whole galaxy of feline mummies. Students are but boys, and they must learn that this is not their business to take the law into their own hands. On the other hand, high dignitaries should remember that even boys have a certain sense of amour propre, which is an unwise thing to neglect. Ultimately, it appears that there has been a misunderstanding on both sides. The students have felt that they have been left out of the clock tower ceremony in November, and no provisions had been made for their attendance at the opening ceremony in December, until a petition had been drawn up. But from the University Senate's point of view, this had not been done intentionally, and they have said they will never let this happen again. The day after the opening ceremony, Gerald Rendell offered his resignation as Principal of University College Liverpool. Whether this resignation was due to the students' behaviour at the opening ceremony or the exhaustion of several years facilitating the construction of the Victoria Building is unclear. However, he changed his mind and continued in his post for a few more years until 1897, with the help of newly appointed Vice Principal McCunn. We may never know what his thoughts on the student spectacle were. However, it was certainly an event that went down in university history and shows that student pranks were around even in the 1890s. We end this video with the last verse of Salvetti Civis Nostri, which states, "May generations countless resolve from age to age to leave their children ever a fairer heritage. So in the course of ages fair college may it increase, in strength and wealth and glory, in honour and in peace. Which is exactly what has happened as almost 140 years since University College Liverpool first began. Many more new buildings were opened for the University of Liverpool, and our iconic red brick building is still very much in the heart of the campus and part of our heritage. In our next video, we shall take a look at what the students themselves thought of their new college building in the early 1890s.